Today I've chosen my top 5 fights from the entire story of Baki, Kengan and Rekkles Ragnarok, and we'll be ranking them from worst to best, a top 15 greatest fights you could say. Let's get right into it. At number 15, for Rekkles Ragnarok, I have Qin Shi Huang vs Hades, the 7th fight in the series, and one that was honestly carried by humanity's fighter. The Chinese Emperor became one of the most appealing characters throughout the entire series, whether it be his flashback or domination throughout the entire fight. I agree that there were quite a few problems when it comes to the God's fighter Hades, but looking at the matchup, reading again, it was quite fire from start to end, the twists and turns, and out of all the fight, it was one I didn't really expect this type of outcome, and once again solidified the Chinese Mad Lad as an absolute beast. Number 14, something a little controversial, but I have Musashi Miyamoto vs Yujiro Hanma. Thinking about this matchup, if you haven't read it yourself, is kinda wild. Going into it, the hype was honestly next level. Musashi had already demonstrated that he was someone not to really mess with. Of course, expect spoilers throughout today's video. Knocking out Baki, who in the previous arc had his whole fight against his father, Yujiro Hanma. Being able to kill the likes of Retsu and overall show absolute domination. Then Yujiro Hanma arriving, looking beefier than ever. And then actually getting pushed in this fight by Musashi, sliced up a few times, while also highlighting the greatness of Yujiro that we love. Of course, the end of the fight where Motobe came in and cucked the conclusion was very unfortunate, but everything apart from that was honestly just peak. For number 13, for the Baki series once again, I have Hanayama vs Spec, the greatest fight in the most evil Death Row Inmate saga, one of the greatest and a lot of people's introduction to the series. If you hadn't read the manga or the previous season, this was pretty much your introduction to Hanayama, and I'm guessing why he's one of the most fan favorite characters in the entire series. For me personally, he's number 2. Spec is just Spec, the Florida man of the Baki series. He came in, beat up Baki a little bit, did some wild things, then getting approached and challenged by Hanayama, having one of the most gory and this insane fights the Baki series has ever seen. The willpower both fighters have, and just the twists and turns about who's going to win was absolute peak. At rank 12, the first Kengan fight on today's video, I have Wakatsuki vs Julius, the first fight in the up and coming Kengan season, or the first fight of Kengan Ashura season 2 if you're in the future. This fight has been one of the most anticipated in the anime, for good reason, because in the manga it's absolute peak. The clash between monsters, titans, absolute powerhouses. Once again, a fight that has twists and turns. You don't know who's going to win. Prior to the matchup, where both of them had easy round 1s, Julius destroyed the likes of Sorda, not really getting insight to his real power, also having other build up thanks to his employer Hayami and his whole purpose in the broader tournament. Then Wakatsuki being built up as a fighter on the same level as the Fangametsudo, being one of the most veteran and respected fighters, coming in for one goal to defeat the King Kanagito. Is he going to be able to defeat potentially the fighter of the main antagonist of the series? Coming into it, we had really no idea who was going to win, and then throughout we also had no idea, and reading it again, it could have actually gone either way if little instances were actually changed. So as a whole, a perfect fight, a perfect ending, and honestly, peak. Every fight in today's video, if you don't know, is absolute peak. If you haven't read all these series, definitely do. Absolute fire awaits. At number 11, for Rekkles Ragnarok, I have Sasaki vs Poseidon, the third fight in the series, and of course humanity's first victory. Sasaki being known as history's greatest loser, and actually being the one to win the first match for humanity was honestly just perfect, in combination with Poseidon kinda being the perfect, unlikable character and unlikable god to actually be defeated. It all matched up. The impact and relief that was provided when Sasaki slayed Poseidon was this greatness. Now into the top 10, with number 10 being Buddha's fight. His betrayal in the series was one of the biggest twists so far in Rekkles Ragnarok, and then his opponent. 2 fights technically, the first one against Zero, which I guess was pretty cool. We had the emotion in both of their flashbacks being there. But then once again another twist with Hajun being inside of Zero, or Papias as he's known in the anime. That fight was very menacing, the fear Hadron spread in the series was next level and hasn't been really matched since, and then Buddha the Mad Lad claiming that victory in the way he did was honestly just absolute peak from start to finish. Now on to number 9, the finale of the Kengan Ashura manga, the final fight, Oma vs Kuroki Gensai. So of course this could be argued to be a 9 out of 10 or a 10 out of 10 fight. Kuroki being built up in the previous rounds was viewed as pretty much unstoppable, and Oma was able to break through his limits, was severely injured from all his other fights, but he was able to shock everyone and give it his all. Going into it, if it was your first time experiencing the series, I guess most people would assume Oma was going to win, but that wasn't the case. Kuroki ended up surviving and winning after the final Demon's Bane X advance, one of the most insane attacks in the entire Kengan series so far, and Oma actually died after that fight. I guess if you've only read Kengan Ashura. At number 8, we also have a final fight for a series, the first manga Grapple of Baki, Jack Hanma vs Baki Hanma, the final of the Maximum Tournament. So this fight, once again, peak from start to finish, the build up and finally the reveal that they're brothers, and then of course the release of Baki's demon back, Jack's insanity when it comes to training and willpower, then the exchanges, Jack biting and using his overwhelming raw power, Baki relying on technique and also using all the other fighters' techniques to battle the likes of Jack. An amazing fight, and do take note, they're rematching in the future of the Baki manga, you better catch up. At number 7, I have Oma vs Kure Ryan. I guess their first matches, as they do multiple sparring matches in the future of the Kengan Omega story, but their fight during the Annihilation Tournament had a lot of stakes outside of the fight itself, was one of the most wild fights seeing advance versus removal for the first time in the series. The clashes, the flashbacks we got for Oma, his memories coming back and his mastery of the Nico style, claiming that victory, super high diff, overwhelming the monster Kure Ryan, absolute fire art, no complaints whatsoever. At rank 6 we have Adam vs Zeus, the fight potentially between the two final bosses of Record of Ragnarok that came out of nowhere and occurred in round 2 of the tournament. Zeus the Supreme God came out, then got shit on for the majority by Adam, who became probably the most likable character in the entire series, or at least one of even to this day now, and these two still remain as some of the strongest, if not the strongest in the entire series, having the most impactful moments in the finale, and unfortunately a fight that was butchered the most in its anime adaptation. Moving on. My current favourite fight in all of Record of Ragnarok, round 4, Jack the Ripper vs Hercules. A fight that's different to everything else on this list and within Record of Ragnarok itself. The twists and turns and how much Jack had to rely on tactics to actually slay a god, and slay a god he did in a unexpected and wild way. From start to finish I was enthralled in this fight. Jack the Ripper became my favourite character, and also we need more fights like this in every series. Number 4, the most anticipated fight in the entire Baki series, Yujiro vs his son Baki Hanma, their big climax. We recently got the anime season for most people to experience this fight for the first time. The build up was there, the impact was there, of course it's still better in the manga. The whole ranking in today's video is based on the manga adaptation or the manga's representation of the fight. Taking in the anime here and there when it is available, but it's mainly just the manga version of the fights, the pretty much better version I would like to say. It's not just one of the longest fights in the entire series, it's still one of the best. Now we have the top 3. I have Kano Agito vs Gao Lang, the final fight of round 2 in the Kengan Ashura Annihilation Tournament. The clash of boxing, getting an understanding of how much of a monster Kano truly is, and then of course the panels of Gao Lang, the moments, the beating Gao Lang had given Kano, Kano evolving and getting stronger and stronger as the fight actually progressed. The exchanges, we're getting the anime adaptation of this fight shortly. Hopefully they give it justice, but still to this day, absolute peak, and will definitely remain one of the greatest fights in all of manga. At number 2, I have my favourite fight in the Baki series, Jack Hanma vs Pickle. If I had to choose one word to describe this fight, it would probably have to be insanity. We have the greatest kiss in manga occurring. We have Jack just not giving up, the idea of when to actually accept defeat, The way Jack came back over and over, how Pickle was pushed to his limits, actually facing fear, greatest moments, greatest FUs, Jack's almighty uppercut, definitely check this out. Now number 1, the fight I believe to be the greatest in pretty much every manga I've read, Kano Agito vs Kuroki Gensai, the semi-final of the Kengan Ashura Annihilation Tournament. Could have very well been the final, but it occurred in the semi-finals, and from start to finish, peak times a million. If you haven't read it, just do it now, start Kengan Ashura from the start, build your way up to this fight, learn about the characters, learn about the previous fights, and see both monsters clash with one another. The twists, the turns, the finale, the reveals, all of it was great. Can't wait to see it in anime form, but I doubt it's going to top the greatness of the manga and first time experiencing it. But that's everything for today's video. I hope you enjoyed. Check out the other stuff in the description. Shout out to these Patreon mad lads, and that's it guys. Peace.